All rise, please.
Thank you. Please be seated. This is case number 15-CV-21399, Jim Williams, Colleen Martin versus Mark Bartholomew et al. In case number 15-CV-21076, Dale Matthews versus Terrence Frick et al. And both Mr. Matthews is here and Mr. Graham is here for petitioners. And are you Ms. Button?
Yes, I'm Ms. Button.
Are you Ms. Button?
I'm Mark Bartholomew.
Mr. Bartholomew is here for the city. During the weekend, I had a chance to review all the pleadings. I've read the cases that are involved, and I'm happy to hear argument. I'll just note, Mr. Walters, we have 2 media requests and only 2 media requests, so unless you have a media request, you can't speak.
Oh, okay.
Had a chance to read the pleadings, read the cases, and I guess the way I'd like to proceed an argument is I'm going to start with Mr. Graham, move on to Mr. Matthews, and then allow the city to respond, and then allow each to respond in turn, if you'd like, not required to, but you may. And as I mentioned, I've read all the pleadings, I've read the cases, so it's not necessary to go over precisely what you've written in your briefs. However, I'm not going to stop if you do. So I'll start with Mr. Graham. Would you like to do it?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I think what's really clear from the pleadings and everything is this. The city wants to adopt a 2% sales tax. It's on a permanent basis. I'll start with the caption. There's nothing in the caption that indicates that sales tax is permanent. That, to me, is why the caption itself is misleading. If someone looks at this and they go, well, they're replacing a property tax that sunsets and a GL levy that sunsets. But this is a permanent tax. And it's been, the citizens have been indoctrinated into this and learned that the city and the county are always coming back to them for an additional vote on a levy to establish sufficient funds for criminal justice and public safety. But the idea of a permanent sales tax is so foreign and contrary to the public of this state. There's a lot of people who moved here.
Well, you say it's permanent, but, is any tax really permanent? It can always be undone, can it not?
Well, there's not a sunset on the tax. There's not a date that tax is going to end.
Okay.
Would the court agree with me about that? Nowhere does it say that tax is going to end.
Well, I looked up the definition of permanent in the dictionary, and it says basically unending.
Unending.
I don't think any tax is unending unless the people want it to be.
But in order to set this tax aside, the voters would have to come in and in essence eliminate it. Or the city council would eliminate it.
Correct.
But the clear reading of it, this is a permanent tax. Okay? So the second point is that, again, this is a initiative to put a sales tax into the city's business system. The question just starts out, the city shall eliminate a 179 property tax levy and eliminate a jail utility fee. Oh, and implement a 2% sales tax. The question should read, shall the city implement a 2% permanent sales tax and eliminate it?
Mr. Graham, if you say that, aren't you implying to the voters they have no power to do anything with the 2% sales tax? And isn't that incorrect or false?
No. What's
they
false?
certainly do. They have a right to come back and petition, have a vote on whether or not it should be eliminated or the rate should go up or down, correct?
The citizens are being asked to adopt a 2% sales tax. Correct?
Well, just answer my question.
Well, I don't follow your question.
The citizens have a right to have a vote on whether or not it's permanent. They have a right to repeal a tax, as with any legislation.
Correct.
Okay. So it's not permanent.
Well, it's permanent until the voters then take an action to set it aside. Isn't that right?
Well, that's true of any legislation.
Okay.
Any legislation can be undone by the voters. Just a tax can, anything else can. It's not permanent.
But the issue before the taxpayers, who are the citizens of this city who are going to vote, is that they are adopting a 2% sales tax. Whether you call it permanent or not, they're adopting a 2% sales tax. That's what the question is. The way the question is worded, it appears that the action of the city council in adopting this is, we're going to get rid of this levy. Oh, no, by the way, there's a sales tax that we're going to implement, whether you call it permanent or not. The point is, the caption is misleading because they only refer to the sales tax at the end, and they make a big deal about eliminating the levy and utility tax that, oh, by the way, that's going to sunset in 2016 and 2008. That's very misleading. The voters, if you look at the question, think, oh man, we're getting rid of some taxes. But in reality, they're adopting a sales tax that instead of just being focused on property values, is now going to be assessed against anybody who buys anything or in a store or who buys a meal. That's misleading. That's the crux of this, as well as the fact that the body of it, of the summary, makes no reference to the fact that this is that the two taxes that they're seeking to eliminate actually going to sunset. What's misleading is that the voter doesn't know that in 2 years, 3 years, you're going to get rid of those taxes anyway. So why should I vote it?
It's labeled as a levy. Levies are for a period of time. Don't the voters know that?
Well, you're assuming that voters have the same degree of knowledge that perhaps you and I do.
Well,
we have a bias.
They're pretty intelligent. Yeah, I know.
We have a bias that we think voters think the same way we do, but they don't. In fact, I think it's incumbent upon the city or whoever's writing the question and writing this to dumb it down to the lowest common denominator for citizens to vote. They're not on the same level that the lawyers and people who draft these things are on. You're assuming something when you say, well, don't they know it's going to sunset? It's a levy. They don't know. All they know is assessed against their property taxes. That's what they do know. So the point is that it's misleading from that standpoint. Your Honor, those are the big points that I wanted to make. I want to go back to the fact that if you read this, particularly the question, it just sounds like they're eliminating a levy. They're eliminating a utility fee. And that the adoption of a 2% sales tax is an afterthought. When in fact, what we're really talking about here is the city's going to adopt a sales tax. That's the question. Shall the city adopt and implement a 2% sales tax? That's what the question should be.
That's what the caption says.
But the question does not say that, does it? It does not say that this is a sales tax. It's an elimination.
The caption starts out by saying it didn't mention anything about a levy or a fee. It just mentions the fact that they're attempting to enact a sales tax.
But you have to, just because one part of it.
The caption is the first thing I would think they would read.
But you have to look at the question. The question is what's being submitted. That's a headline. The caption's a headline. The question that the voters are being asked upon is the critical thing. So I submit.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews.
Your Honor, the best thing that's going to come out of this courtroom today, I believe, is that when the next levy comes up and they're saying this will give us a permanent solution to our law enforcement problem, it's been said in this courtroom that that's not permanent. Okay, I'll take that as a victory. One of the things that is a problem with this is that let's suppose that there was an older gentleman, well-to-do in the area, and he always votes for every kind of tax that would keep him safer. He wants to vote to keep the tax for the jail. He wants to vote to keep the tax on his property. He wants to vote to add a sales tax. He can't do that because he needs to make a choice. Do I want to eliminate two things that I want? Or do I want to say yes to another? He can't possibly vote on this. He won't know what to do. It's confusing. That's confusing. The word permanent is not confusing to our voters. That's been argued by the other side. That's not confusing. We know what that means. Let's suppose instead...
What does it mean to you, Mr. Matthews?
Okay.
What does permanent mean to you?
Permanent means the same thing that was meant by the levies, the levies on people's property. That if you vote that in, and if it says that it's permanent, then you've got a permanent solution to your law enforcement problem. Yes, it can always be voted down.
I'm asking, what does the word permanent mean to you?
The word permanent means to me that it's going to stay that way unless voted down by the people later. Well, then they've got to go through a whole new process. Every law that we have that goes to the population could be voted down at any time. Then, and by one definition, absolutely nothing is perfect, is permanent. By the other definition, argued when they want to pass a tax, it's always permanent. They want it both ways. So let's suppose instead that you had a younger person that was struggling and they just feel, for their own reasons, that they can't afford any kind of taxes. So they'd like to say no to the property tax. They'd like to say no to the jail levy tax. They'd like to say no to this. They can't do that either because this says yes to two things and no to another. They won't know how to vote. It's not fair that they're all put within one thing. They should be two separate things. That way, then you can vote the way that you want to. I can vote the way that I want to. At the moment, we can't do that. That's why this is not a good idea. Plus, the one in the middle, let's eliminate the jail utility fee, jail fee. That was put on there by the city council. They didn't ask us. They didn't put that up to a vote. They could cancel that tomorrow. They could cancel that any time. But they're telling us, well, now if you vote, it's going to go away. It's going to go away anyway. It's going to go away before this was implemented if it passes. So it's like saying, do you want to change the weather?
Mr. Matthews, couldn't both the levy be reauthorized by the people? Let's start with the levy. It could be reauthorized by the people.
It could be.
So it doesn't necessarily go away forever.
That's what this says. It's going to go away. Well, it doesn't necessarily go away.
Well, I mean, absent the sales tax, just talking about in general, you're concerned about what people would think. The levy can be reauthorized by the people. You agree to that?
Yes, of course.
And you agree the fee could be reauthorized by the city council?
Anytime they want, yes, sir. So even after this passes.
It won't necessarily go away.
That's a really good point. Thank you, Your Honor. When they say you're voting to get rid of this, they could impose the jail tax the very next day after it passes. They didn't ask us our opinion in the first place. So why are they saying this is a choice you get to make? It's like asking me if I want to change the weather. No.
Both you and Mr. Graham were asking that the ballot title be amended to add the word, or to clarify that both the levy is going to expire at some point and the jail fee is going to expire, correct?
Yes, sir. And those words could be...
The point I was going to make is forget about the sales tax. that wouldn't necessarily be true because they will expire, but they can't be reauthorized either by the people or by the city council, correct?
Well, by that logic, sir, with respect, every law that we pass should not include the word permanent anywhere in it because nothing in this life is permanent.
I agree with you, Mr. Matthews.
They do it anyway because they're trying to influence the vote.
Well, you're asking that the sales tax be referred to as permanent. It isn't permanent, is it? If enacted.
I guess it depends on your definition of the word permanent. Nothing in life is permanent.
Well, my definition from the dictionary is unending. So a sales tax is not unending.
And as I said, sir, with respect, that's what they tell us we'll get from a permanent tax on property that will permanently solve the funding for the sheriff.
You see, talked about policy as opposed to the ballot fighter.
No, I'm talking about psychology, sir.
My obligation is to authorize a fair ballot fighter.
Well, you'll know.
I'm just wondering if it's fair and clear to say it's permanent sales tax when it can be.
Seems obvious that I'm not going to win that argument, which also wasn't the argument that we put up. The argument that we put up is that this violates the single issue point. That's why we didn't put that in there, because we kind of thought this might happen. Look, it's not necessary to put in the thing about the jail utility fee because it's going to sunset anyway, and the city council could put it back on the next day. So any vote that anybody has, where they think that they're influencing that weather pattern, it's false. Second thing is, they said that they've run out of room to put any additional words, permanent or any other thing, temporary. Well, that would give them the room. They could put in all kinds of things. See, in this case, they're saying, do you like kittens? Do you like sunshine? Oh, and also here's a tax.